The October 15th DRB meeting to order. First is agenda changes.
I don't have any.
None? If board members can review the minutes of September 17th.
I've reviewed them and they look fine to me.
I agree.
Move to approve.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain?
Aye.
So 3 in favor?
Yep. Up next is Bucky's Pub LLC, Tony and Ruchel St. Hilaire. Sign review for Bucky's Pub located on 1.6 acre property located at Ballard's Corner Road. Before we get started, I got a letter in the mail saying I was an abutting landowner. I don't think I need to recuse myself because it's,
You are?
I guess.
Across the street?
Yeah.
By a point.
So,
Actually, you know what, Dennis?
Unless-
I'll explain that. If you take the northern property line of, you know where it is? All right,
Yeah.
good. So,
if somebody wants me to recuse myself, I'm more than happy to, but
Tony, you
I
have
don't
any
think I need to.
objection?
I don't hear any board member petitioning that you remove yourself.
Okay. All right, let's see here.
So you guys did the minutes already?
Yeah.
Yep.
We didn't have anything.
So could, maybe we could deal with the 2 signs that don't seem to have any substantive issues, at least to me.
That sounds good.
This one does have an issue to me and seemingly to Mitch and maybe some other people, but the others don't seem to. Maybe we could just put those to rest.
Are the other board members in agreement with the other 2 signs?
I think the other two are fine.
Yeah.
Sandwich board and the
We don't have schematics on them, but I'm,
Well,
sandwich board is normally always the same size, right?
so just on the sandwich board, where do you propose to place it?
So I've had it on the corner of 116 for a couple times and then on the end of Ballard Road.
And are those on private property or in town easements?
Christy Brown from the store has told us that it's fine to have it there and the bank has said it's not a problem.
Okay, so you've been getting permission from the landowners.
And the one that was on 116 was also, they told me that it was not a problem because the Vermont Fish and Wildlife placards on top of the sign because they want people to know that it's a reporting station for deer harvest.
But you recognize if you're putting on a private property, you have to have their permission
Yes.
to do that?
Yeah.
And that could be revocable.
And the letters don't exceed 20 inches on this one?
No.
Is that true?
Not that one.
Okay.
I guess my question regarding this and the other sign, since this one is within the 20, or is 20, the other one was like 24, and I understand there's a scale to it and it's a logo. I guess my question was, why wouldn't this sign, the exact same sign, work on the other side?
Because you want the reason? The full reason is I called the sign place and said, hey, can you make me up some signs? And those were the first 2 things I shot at. So will it work? Sure.
Okay.
But that's what they sent me, so that's what I submitted.
I guess I hadn't seen that one, and that raises a question in my mind. So this would be approvable, Mitch, under what regulation?
This would be on section 5 for,
541B.
yeah.
Yeah, wall-mounted signs,
This is a wall-mounted
360,
sign.
and it may not extend above the roof line.
Right.
So what's the roof line?
Well, that, on this end, the roof line is that the fascia. On the,
Gable end.
yeah, on a gable end, that's not above the roof line.
Why not?
To me, roof line was always the peak of the roof.
No, that's not, well, okay.
I mean, well, that's
It
what,
was never that to me.
when they talk about roof lines in a series of homes, I've always considered that to be the peaks of the roofs of the string of homes. So,
They would have sent that, I think, if they meant.
I guess I have an interpretation of, I didn't know, I didn't see this one, I saw the other one. This raises in our regulations whether this is above the roof line or not. Roof line could be in the top of the roof line, the midpoint of the roof line, or the bottom of the roof line.
Well, that's the thing, because the regulations do not have a definition for roof line. Probably the next edition probably will, because of this.
And I was going to recommend to
But
Dennis
the
that,
other thing what we did was we took a look at dictionaries. What is the typical dictionary definition of a roof line? And I put it in the staff report. Basically, it's the outline of the roof itself.
The profile.
But on that.
the profile.
But that said, this board has the authority if there's some history and such as far as how this has been defined in the past.
Well, we,
Let me
to my
go-
mind, and I go back a fair distance on these issues, back to the zoning board, had never confronted this issue when this is the eve end. Forget about this one. The other one is the eve
Right.
end. Is that correct? Is that the nomenclature?
The gable end.
The gable end?
Yeah.
We've never had an application that raises this issue. Are there any other commercial establishments in Hinesburg that have a sign that is above the bottom of the roof line?
Kenny's.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
Kenny's.
And the bakery gets pretty close on the one side. I
And
don't,
Obashan Hardware, that has a flat roof, but that's
well, and
way up to the top.
they all have roofs over the awnings,
And it's above that.
Yeah. Grateful Dog.
or they all have roofs.
No,
When I
that's
say
in
they all
the-
have signs
yeah.
over the awnings.
Yes.
Okay, so is that the 116 side?
Yes.
Okay. All right. It's ambiguous. I'm not going to quarrel with it, but I would commend the Planning Commission to try and clarify this for us going forward.
All right, so we're talking about the, this particular wall sign. And.
I guess I'm okay with that. Hold on.
I think the board members are okay with the two signs. One that sandwich board and the gable end.
Yep.
So now we need to talk about this one.
Right, and so I would just throw out, for my opinion, same as Greg, as far as the sandwich board, I'm assuming that it has to be at the approval of whatever property you're putting it on, so I'm not sure, there's town right away, so, like for example, along Shelburne Road there, I mean, that's town road, there's a town right away, so technically you could put it in the town right away, and you wouldn't have to ask the bank, I don't think. So I don't know how that works in general for sandwich boards. Do people just have the right to put one out, or does it have to be?
Well, the town right-of-way probably encroaches on private property, and I don't think the town right-of-way would extinguish the property owner's right to object to non-town related improvements or development.
Well, we should look at what covers it. What covers the
For sandwich boards?
sandwich board? It's off-premise signs, I believe, right?
Right. I mean, basically, you can look at the, on page 61, sandwich board or portable signs, which just talks about the signs, the size, and so forth, and of course, the fact that it should be removed when the business is closed. But what they're, and a sandwich board sign does not in of itself need any, does not need a permit or DRB approval. The issue, of course, is off-premise signs. Under 5.4.59, no sign will be allowed off-premise which the sign advertises or serves unless specifically authorized by the Development Review Board, or is allowed by, two different particular types of signs. It has to be within the neighborhood, and the location of the sign is appropriate and necessary in order to identify the location of the premise advertised. And I feel like I'm missing something here. Because I quoted, when such approval is given unless the premise advertised within the neighborhood location sign and location of the sign is appropriate, and here it is appropriate and necessary in order to identify the location of the premise advertised.
What's interesting, though, is it doesn't say anything about you need permission from the person whose property you're putting that sign on.
I think that's actually superfluous
Well,
because.
he has, but like I said, it could be revocable. Someone
If
else
you
might.
can't have it there, then you'll have to take it down.
So, I mean, I
Right?
guess it's an easy fix, but should that be in the decision at all?
Well, you also have to remove it whenever the business is closed.
It's closed, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's taken down well, actually, it's probably taken down after dusk or something like that, because you're not gonna be able to see it.
So what happens at Abishan, because they have those signs there out of the corner. They come in at night.
Sandwich board signs?
Yeah.
They can they can pull that off their, when the business that's advertising is closed, they would remove
Well,
that.
I know they can, but do they? I
That's
haven't
a-
paid attention.
I would hope so, but, something.
I'm not sure we had that conversation with them.
They should. It says must be removed, business closed. Must be at least 5 foot from the travel portion of the roadway and not interfere with traffic circulation or sight lines. And it says somewhere there also may be state rules about putting it near state
Well,
highways.
I'm not sure we've put it in decisions in the past, but I think we can do it in this one going forward.
I mean, I guess the remedy is pretty straightforward. If you're putting it on somebody's private property, and then they can come to the town and say, we'd like that person to stop doing that.
Or
so
come to the
it's-
person and tell them.
Or come to the person.
I think they would basically come to the person and do that.
So, I guess it's not irrevocable if we agree to allow the sandwich sign.
So as to the big sign, to me, what is decisive is it seems to be sought under the provision 5 I don't have it, but it's D, wall-mounted signs mounted parallel to the building, and this is not a wall-mounted sign, and there's nothing in the regulations that speak to roof-mounted signs. So to my mind, that's decisive as to why this sign is not approvable.
I came to the same conclusion.
This is not.
Did you wanna comment on that?
One.
It's not a wall-mounted, it's not even,
Right.
I mean, it
Right.
doesn't matter, it's not a wall-mounted sign.
Right.
And the only provision in here is for wall-mounted signs, yeah.
I mean, you could try.
Did
to
you,
Look at this as would you consider having this a freestanding sign? It just has to be limited to 16 square feet.
So that's kind of the problem with the property, is that we're finding out, even to just bring this to your attention to look at it, is I'm trying to raise some kind of attention to, even though that's not gonna work for you guys. I mean, when you're looking down the road to the business, there's no way, I mean, when you go down the street, you can't read the dentist sign, you can't read the library sign. I mean, being the dead end, in some way I have to be able to let people know the business is there. And I don't know how to do it, so that was the thing that I thought of was, look, if I can get it on the roof, at least it's high enough that maybe somebody coming around the corner would be able to see it. The sandwich board helps to get people directed down, but, I mean, when it was Trevia's, there were no signs. So, and because of the history of the place, a lot of people didn't go, and we're trying to change that. We're trying to make it more of a friendly place. We want people from town to be able to feel comfortable coming in, but, you know, Google searches nowadays are helpful, but the visibility of that street for that business at the end is tough. And so I'm trying to find a way to make it work. Now, if I put something freestanding out in the edge of the property line, close to the dentist's office, again, now you're running power out there, it's not gonna have a light on it at night, because I don't know if it would be feasible. I mean, from the building it would be, but from the road, maybe not. And then most of our businesses, you know, we're trying to accommodate, we're not really open for lunch yet, we're waiting to see if people want to have it open for lunch. So, I mean, we are in the building stages of trying to build this business to be a successful business in town. The problem with it is the location, a little bit. I mean, now it's been a restaurant for 40 years and it was successful in the past, and I mean, I remember when I was in school in 1989, right where I'm putting that sign, it used to say tavern on the end of that building. And so when I was talking to Mitch about, okay, why are all these old approvals in there? Why can't I have it back? And then we talked about, well, you need to redo it. Well, okay, well, here I am. Because I mean, I distinctly remember that saying tavern on it, and it was Fortin's Tavern. And it just said tavern on the end of the building.
I don't know if I got a, on the end of the building?
Yeah, right where the Bucky sign.
Not on the roof.
Not on
Is
the
that
roof.
gonna be lit, the end one?
I would like it to be lit because we're open at night.
Sure.
We're not really, you know, right now, we're doing 3 to 10.
I don't think we have any problem with the end one.
No, I was just saying
but
you
I'm saying,
can
I'm
light
just
that
giving you,
one.
I'm just giving you a rundown of what my thought process is now we're onto a side that's the furthest away from traffic,
Right.
furthest away from people being able to see it. How do we draw attention to it, to let people know that there's a welcoming business in Hinesburg?
Yeah, I mean, getting it off, getting a freestanding sign that you can see as coming up the road is probably, is certainly approvable, up to 16 square feet.
My thought is like, somewhere a sign in there or something.
Or even further over where you can see it from the road.
Do they have that, is that
Because-
property theirs? I can't tell.
There's a height limitation on those.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, what is the,
15.
But I was thinking, why can't you put it like over here?
I mean,
I think that we
Our
were,
issue is we have to deal with the regulations as written.
Right.
And to my mind, I can't countenance a roof-mounted sign, notwithstanding your,
So I talked to Alex today.
there are two options then.
Well, there's
One, you
there's
can deal with the regulations and try and develop a freestanding sign, or you could consider encouraging, in this particular instance, the planning commission to consider a relaxation, a limited relaxation for a roof-mounted sign that doesn't really, not really visible from,
Well, that's kind of what I was talking with.
but we can't do that as a board, in my estimation. I think that has to be something,
what are these, select board,
planning commission.
do they grant waivers?
No,
No, but they would have to put it in the regs
It's
in
a
the select
long-term,
board.
it's a
Yeah,
long-term
okay,
project.
that's a, yeah, that would
right,
be.
changing the regulations to make this allowable.
Okay, one time.
Yeah, well,
It wouldn't be one time.
they'd have to
but they
write
could-
it such that it applies.
Right, and you have to be
Generally,
consistent
I
with
think.
everything, right, yeah.
Yep.
Because you mentioned as far as visibility, I would think that a sign that was placed on the roof over here with all the vegetation and so forth that's here would be less visible than having a freestanding sign over here.
Ideally, it would almost be even better to be put on the porch.
Porch.
Where's the
I mean, right over here?
Oh, yeah. You have a picture
Of the
that shows the
building,
porch?
yeah.
Oh, it doesn't show the
It
porch.
doesn't, you guys don't have one, but I took one from the road, which is, the porch is off to the side.
How, is there a place, well,
I know,
let's-
But that's below, it would be below that roof line, it would be below the roof line of the porch.
could you put a sign of this size on that area?
Yes. I could hang it under the eaves, matter of fact, if I cut the trees again, but they don't want me to cut the trees again. Which
Do
is
you
my
have a picture of
problem.
the porch?
You can email that picture.
Can you
to-
email it to them?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Which is,
we
which is,
got the technology right here.
which has been kind of an interesting thing with the trees.
All right, you want to email that to me and I will,
Put it up on the wall.
Are they your trees?
Bam.
Gotta cut the trees out.
Oh, no, I can't see the tree.
Well, the trees got cut because the insurance company wouldn't insure me with the trees growing into the building.
They won't let you cut it?
No, I had to cut them.
Oh,
Because
okay.
I couldn't get insurance for the building, because the trees were growing into the roof line. And so the insurance company said, you're cutting them, but then when I cut them, people are like, well, they're supposed to be there, and I'm like, okay, what do you do now? Because they were hedges that got overgrown,
Yeah.
and so then it becomes,
Okay, so this is landscape plantings that were in front of, right
They-
right along the building.
they were right along the porch,
Okay.
and they grew into the roof.
You should go cut them.
go back a little bit.
Should be sitting
I
there.
see it.
I think
Little gray cat.
No, that's what I was thinking.
Hmm?
Little gray cat still missing.
Yeah.
I
It is?
know. I read that.
That yours?
No. You
Just on the building.
So I was
You're
like,
not gonna see it from down here.
that's why I was late.
You're looking for the cat?
No, I was looking at the picture of the cat.
What was the picture?
I didn't know
The
Hinesburg
sign
had
here and
72nd
off of
Street.
116.
I was thinking that too, I'm like, where's
What?
the?
Where's, 72nd Street in Hinesburg?
Hinesburg's growing.
M Sipes,
Where are you looking?
MCYPS, at Hinesburg.org.
Oh.
I mean, where's
there we go.
70 through, I mean, where's 1 through 71?
All right, let's see, let's go.
72nd Street.
So that picture was taken right at the corner of Ballard's, looking down the street, which is even tougher because when you're driving into the road, you're over by the bank.
Yeah.
Yeah, because.
Oh, there's a porch
Oh,
over there, I
yeah.
see that. Is that porch open or screened or what?
It's opened. It's not connected to the building.
It's not connected.
So the sign could hang from the
Yeah, the
eaves
sign could
there.
hang from the down.
Or I could have a facade on the porch that doesn't go above the roof line or the main roof.
What?
But
Is that a wall on the porch or is that?
no, it's wide open.
It's wide open.
Oh, you were saying
Those
put
are
a
the
wall
trees.
on it?
The reason why it looks like a wall is those are the trees. I cut them down just at the
Oh.
roof line because I had to get them off the building.
Got it.
So you were thinking put up a wall and put a sign on that? A wall mounted
Well, I
sign?
mean, if we're spitballing, I'm asking for, some guidance. I mean,
You can
because,
hang it
I
from
mean,
poles,
you guys are
can't you?
looking at what I'm looking at there.
Yeah, but see, the
That's
trees
not-
are in the way.
That's not
But-
inviting.
You can put it on the wall, if there's a wall.
But you can't hang it down from an eave?
Wall mounted sign, it's a wall mounted sign.
So if I put,
But the shrubs are still there or not there?
they are still there.
Then
So
why
you
can't
need
you,
to cut those.
If I did something like Aubuchon on that porch, there would be a wall. It would be like in the Wild Wild West with a facade. It would be flat.
Yeah.
Be below the roof line, and it could get mounted to it.
Okay.
I think visibility wise, that actually,
I would consider that
But I want you to see my
approval.
problem, is it's not very inviting.
Right,
right.
yep.
And those other trees, the big spruce trees, no, those are overgrown.
these over here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm not supposed to take those down either.
Well,
Which causes-
Because they're part of the
Landscaping
president,
plan.
landscape plan. But you can also, if trees are overgrown and they're not supposed to be that way, you
You
can
can
cut them and
replace them.
replant
Right.
different ones.
yeah. I don't
That's
see-
So if
okay.
It was
It's
intended to
just-
be low
I would
shrubs.
just mention that to the zoning administrator before you actually do that.
Yes, but say, for example, the other shrubs that are overgrown, you can pull them and put in
Yeah,
normal ones.
yeah.
It's a big talking point now. People are like, what is?
No, I mean, I think that's a good suggestion, because those really, those big spruces are the ones that, overgrown spruces right there are the ones that are really blocking the, you know.
So is this something we would wanna continue and have him come back with a picture of it on the, what his plan is?
For the third sign, yeah. For the first two, I
That-
think we,
Well, maybe he wants to just go forward with the two signs and figure out the other one.
right,
I think that's what you just suggested.
yep.
Go,
I
So
can
no,
call- I
let's
can-
get-
well,
I
can we
call-
continue it for just the one?
Well, but he wants to
Well,
get
we
it
want to
done.
get approval
I think he
for
wants
the
to get a
first
sign
two.
up though. If you continue
Well,
it, he
you
doesn't.
could do one of two things, and you could either get the approval now for the two and come in for another sign application to get that third in the future, or this
Or you
can be,
just have to pay more money?
yeah, it's
We could
another,
waive, I think we could waive the application fee for an amendment to his previous
I
application.
can talk to the Director of Planning and Zoning and see if he'd be
Okay,
willing to do that.
Cause you'd like to get approval for the two signs so you can get going on them, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of an odd thing, but
Is there a house back there too?
there's one way off to the left behind the other trees.
But no
Which is-
house in front of the two spruce trees that are overgrown?
No.
Dentist.
Actually, let
The
me,
dentist is right there, you can see the dentist.
here, I can pull this up here. Here's the,
Dentist office?
here's the subject property.
Oh, there's still an
Here,
open lot there.
this is what you were looking up over here.
It's been for
There's a
sale
house
forever.
on this side
Should buy that.
That's accessed from beyond,
from.
west of Ballards.
Right, this is,
Really good.
But they've got,
Pleasant Valley.
but they've got a screening hedge already,
Right,
that
that's-
wouldn't be touched, right?
There's a
Correct.
major waterway that runs through that one, which
this is the
people have
library over
looked at.
here,
Oh, really?
You can't fit anything.
dentist office.
Where's the
McDonald's?
original landscape
No
plan?
McDonald's?
No, that's somebody else who's looked at that
I actually
one.
think I have that up here.
For the
Oh,
big
okay.
sign, yeah.
Um,
Gold.
from 1986 or 2006 when we did
This
the-
is 2006, but the plan is from 2003.
It doesn't even show those 2 trees.
Well, don't get into the tree, don't get into the trees with me, because there's 5 willow trees.
But it does show the shrubs along the porch.
Yeah.
No one can tell me where the 5th willow tree is now. I have a stump for the 4th one, but no one can tell me where to put the 5th willow tree, because there isn't 5 willow trees. And
Well, but I just
never
wonder,
has
because it
been.
usually would say what kind of shrubs they're supposed to be, and then you can have an idea of how, or tree, and then you have an idea of what size they
Well,
are
does it-
supposed to
does
grow.
it
So
say-
things have improved
It does say
since
something there.
2006.
Yeah.
Okay,
Things were kind of sketchy.
Look it up a little bit, it might say on there.
It says something there.
Yeah,
Make this larger?
yeah.
Right here.
Yeah, so that says willows, that says cedars.
20-foot
20
high
foot
cedar.
high.
Oh, it does say 20-foot high white cedars. You might
there you
wanna,
go.
you might wanna come in for a
Site plan.
site plan amendment, because, you know, we're not totally unreasonable when you got something, you know what I mean?
20
If
foot
you wanna
high.
put shrubs, if you wanna put shrubs along the front of that, I think that would be fine and put a.
There's, it says here, 20
But you
foot
inherited this,
high white seed.
Yeah, but you inherited this, so this is the thing that is applicable right
But the
now.
other ones say 20 foot high, and they're like 100 feet high,
Well,
so,
they're-
I mean,
Well, they would- I
Yeah,
would say 100
so-
feet.
no, you know, but I mean, so
They're high.
they're higher.
Right, and a 20-foot high is not something we would normally call out for a landscaping plant anyway.
We didn't, those aren't our
No,
numbers.
no, no,
but
I'm sure I'm sure that was there, and they just put it on the site plan.
Right,
And they just called it out because it was 20 feet high.
or they may have, because they built that deck, and I think they may have, actually intended those to be 20-foot high cedars.
No, that's true, they may have wanted screening, I suppose.
Yeah,
Well, the reality is, in 2006, this was a site plan that was about 20 years out of conformance with the original
Well,
regulations.
that's
So
true.
I think everybody's trying to stuff everything into a square peg into a round hole.
So, do we wanna approve the 2 signs and continue? And just
Oh, wait.
deny the 3rd sign?
well,
And then come
Yeah, I
back?
mean, deny and invite him to come back, and I would support waiving any application fee for, to my mind, this is really an amendment.
Or you can come back for a site plan, which then the sign could be incorporated in.
yep, true. Yeah, because you do have to, if you're not gonna have
20 foot
20-foot high white cedars.
If he
do
wants
need
to
modify-
revise a site plan, yeah, you could
You do need to
incorporate
revise a
the
site plan.
sign into
$15
that.
application fee on that one if you want to go.
That's fabulous.
Yeah. it's not-
So you might want to rethink a couple of components. It sounds like the board is encouraging you to maybe downsize in some areas, and you
The
can
landscaping.
kind of wrap everything up in one application,
Yep.
kind of clean it up and make your whole property a little more attractive.
You making a motion?
I assume to put a wall on the deck, though, in order to hang a
Yeah,
wall-mounted
that's what he said,
sign,
yeah.
would require zoning, a building
It
permit.
will probably require it might require a site plan amendment, or if there's a new site plan that happens to be in this
Change the
process,
structure.
that could be included in the site plan revision that this board approves, and then it would be a $40 permit from the zoning administrator to make that happen.
I'm not sure it has to be a solid wall. The way it talks about it, it says,
Like a lattice.
it says mounted parallel to the building is what it's talking
interesting.
about. Lattice would certainly qualify as a wall or
Yeah.
whatever, yeah.
We can hang it on the posts that are holding up the building.
Oh, that's what I was
Well,
thinking.
that's what I
would
From the
think.
eaves or the
But-
post,
but
it
Ted
would
said it had to be
it'd still be
wall-mounted.
parallel, but sounds like there's some wiggle room there.
There's 4 2x4s across there, a wall?
Yeah,
What's
yeah,
a wall?
Exactly, exactly.
Well, I didn't study that point, so I'm not going to venture.
Slap some
on it.
lattice behind it.
May not, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because I think on the main building, you have windows, you have the door. I'm not sure there's any other wall space to have. And again, it's around the corner, right? So you want something further out. You would like to be able to get power to it so that you can light it. So it seems like further out toward the end is the right way to do it if you can just work out the logistics.
Sounds like everybody on the board is trying to
Yeah, I get it.
make things as easy as possible within the four corners of our regulations. Mitch is kind of our conduit for this, so I'm sure he's happy to work with you to try and grease the skids as best we can.
So I would move to approve the gable and the sandwich board sign, and
Direct staff to
draft conditions of approval.
approvals.
Yep.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So what are your hours now?
Thank you. Right now, we're 3 to 10.
3 to 10.
Trying to keep some of the riffraff out.
Okay, let's get this meeting done.
Yeah.
Let's talk, and then when you're ready to go forward.
That, the 10 o'clock keeps the riffraff out, or 3 o'clock?
3 o'clock is for the early bird specials.
So you got venison on the menu?
No, we do not.
Not yet,
No.
not yet.
No, well, you would have to be
Yeah.
FDA certified.
Has to be farm raised, right?
Farm raised, right.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but no,
Really?
it's been an interesting venture, because for some of you who don't know, I'm a UPS guy. I've been working for UPS for 30 years. And I did this just because there was no place in town to get a reasonable meal when you had kids. And I grew up, had 2 kids grow up in this town. So you can walk over there and get a burger for $10 with french fries.
Great.
So we're trying to keep things decent. So it's been interesting. We're pretty up for it by telling everybody if you want a mixed drink and you don't know what's in it, because we don't know what's in it either. And it may not taste like you want it.
That's why they call it a mixed drink.
So there's no promises. Okay, thank you. I'll be in touch.
Thanks.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, next.
Other business, George Bedard, request for an extension of a sketch plan approval.
This would be the first extension request. Nothing's changed. Hasn't been a new communication.
So it says 4 lots. Was that only 4
He's
lots?
ready to move forward after.
Mm-hmm.
I guess what we're down to.
I was thinking there was 4 building lots and then a bigger,
No, I think one of them was the real big one. One of them.
One
was
is the big one? Okay.
One is the big one, and I think,
Okay.
right, and then it's a total of 4 lots.
Okay.
One that had a building envelope and the remainder of the land.
yeah, okay.
So I would
He's
move
very
to approve the extension.
6 months extension.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next is the planning commission memo on stormwater analysis.
So what does this actually mean? I don't quite appreciate what cumulative effects they need to take in, that they're talking about having applicants take into account.
I think I know that what they're really trying to do is they're worried about,
This is kind of an Alex issue, right?
I don't know if it's so much Alex, I think it's the planning commission.
No, but Alex is more informed about this than you are, because he's kind of liaison.
Well, he's the liaison to the, he staffs the planning commission. But basically, it was a memo, and it's funny, for me, this was a little awkward because I wanted to write kind of a response based on what I actually saw. So I'm gonna, it was considered more appropriate to basically just give you the memo as it happened to be with the statement that I had made in the email. I think it's really the genesis of this, and I don't know, Dennis, you might be able to have some comments on this. It's a concern about beliefs as far as changes that may be going on with the climate and the frequency of larger storms and so forth, which basically if the federal government wants to change the rainfall amounts, there's a certain website that they could actually just make an announcement and change it if they think that the data, hundreds or so years of data in which a lot of these rainfall intensities are based upon, if they want to change it, they basically could change that, and that would be a mechanism for every designer to actually change that. There really isn't so much a mechanism for the board itself to change it, and that was kind of my comment back to them.
Yeah, we don't do statistics. We don't do hundreds of years of statistics. I mean, that's why we count on state or federal or whatever. I mean, the point is it's statistical data.
Right.
It's not just it feels like, there was more this year than last year.
Yes.
And I don't think we need to be getting into the business of presuming we know more about the statistics of storms that are happening. I mean, the other concern that
we're not going to have to get into it until an application calls us to do it either. So,
And
well,
and I would just-
almost
yeah.
every application involves stormwater.
but it also, yeah, but I understood it to be asking us to consider other cumulative development, and most of our applications don't have cumulative development. That's
Until they-
in
No,
the
it's
pipeline.
like,
It's
what
little
they're
by
talking
little.
about is if you start at Seaview Road
Right.
and you have a development there, and then a mile down from there you have another development.
That's
They want,
in the pipeline.
what?
I understood that to be in the pipeline.
Yeah,
Right, but they want that developer to make sure that I'm saying it simply, but make sure the stormwater is okay all the way down through there.
I understood that just to be kind of coordinating among developments in the application process, not to figure out everything that's going on over everything that has existed and will exist going forward in perpetuity.
so we have
It's more
multiple,
limited than that.
we potentially have multiple large projects. Each one isn't considering that the other one may happen. Is that true at this
They're
point?
not required necessarily to,
Right.
although
Is that what the
when
plan-
someone does a stormwater, a state stormwater permit, and which is reflected in our process, they have to consider what might happen in other types of developments, and what effects it might actually have on other types of developments. But as far as a full type of coordination, they don't have to necessarily create infrastructure for uphill development, but they do have to consider uphill development when doing their calculations on their existing conditions.
They have to do that now.
Yes.
Okay. So what more than that are we looking to have done? We don't know.
I guess I'm a little confused.
You don't know
'cause
yet.
One of the base rules for any development is that you can't dump more water into a existing water system than already is going in there,
Off your land.
off your land.
ground.
And
Right.
you only have control over your land. So I don't understand how you can ask one developer of one piece of property to account for, let's say he's downstream, that he has to somehow account for the water coming in from upstream. I mean, it's already part of the regs that they have to make sure they maintain stormwater and they let the water back into the drainage ways at basically the same rate.
More or less. Actually, for storms that are, for most development, storms that are less than a 10-year storm event, the post-development discharge is going to be less.
Was that
than the
peak discharge or total discharge?
Peak discharge.
Peak discharge. Okay,
Right.
so you have more impervious surface. There's gonna be, over time, more water coming off the piece of land. Is that true?
Well,
As
not
long
if
as the
you-
peak doesn't exceed what it was before? Is that?
Well, unless you have to put in a stormwater
I mean,
pond.
yeah,
or
I mean, you have to
something like
capture
that.
it and you hold it and then
Right.
you let it.
But yes, the quantity of stormwater can increase in, I'm not going to say every storm event, but in many storm events.
Right, because you
Which
have
is-
more impervious surface.
Right, which is why the 2017 stormwater standards
Right.
pushes infiltration as much
Right.
to try to reduce that total volume.
Right. So if there's more impervious surface upstream, it seems like eventually there's gonna be more cubic feet of water that ends up down here. You can't have it peaking you can't have it peak any higher, but there will be more water coming off that piece of land over time, and you need, that can have a cumulative effect, downhill, I would think. And you say that engineering is supposed to consider that.
The 2017 standards is looking more at a volume-based
Okay.
standard.
So I guess what's new that we're supposed to, what are we being asked to do? I know we're not, it's being suggested, not directed. That's
Right.
what my understanding is.
I think the whole thing is just simply look at a particular development and see if on adjacent property, if there is a potential where a longer, well, it's funny, I want to get into a whole bunch of different mathematics on this because it doesn't really quite end up in that particular place, because even if you have more water that is being generated, it's not going to have since the peak is going to be less, then, well, I would just simply say they just want you basically to keep it in mind, maybe ask a question or two in certain developments if such a thing were to come up.
And certainly in the higher, when you get beyond that 10-year thing,
Mm-hmm.
there often is more volume
Correct.
and flow. Is that true?
And the peak flow.
Right.
It's basically there is an exemption. If a development creates less than 10 acres of new impervious,
Yep.
then they are exempt from having to meet the 100-year storm standard.
Okay.
What I've been trying to talk to a few people on the Planning Commission is perhaps, I mean, here it is, the town has gone from 1 acre to 10,000 square feet to require stormwater mitigation. Perhaps that 10-acre exemption should be reduced to something smaller, where they may not have to do a 100-year stormwater mitigation for the state, similar to, but bringing that number down, like the town has brought down to the 10,000 square feet. Maybe something like that would be, kind of meet more of what it is that they're looking for.
That's up to the planning commission.
And the
Correct.
town is working on the roadside ditches too?
They're doing that as part of the Lake Champlain water
Right, but I
improvement,
mean-
aren't they? Isn't that funded through, yeah, I believe it
Yeah.
is.
Is it
That's
something
why-
that's
that's why there's
moving
so much
along
going on.
quickly, or?
I know it's moving along, I don't know the. I
They
don't
did
know
a ton of work up on the hills. Lincoln Hill I know well. Lots of riprap and, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, I will also keep that in mind in the thing that Ted had mentioned.
Or to
and
the
we
staff
can ask-
reports that highlight this issue.
Yes.
So
There
you're
is
gonna
one
sit
particular-
at the planning commission sometime too, right? And try to
I
get more
want to
information.
come to the planning commission, because I think that would probably address their concern. The question is to what size, and the state is using its what they call residual designated authority (RDA) standards to basically relook at developments that have more than 3 acres of impervious surface, and for developments that don't have that were built before permitting, that now a lot of these developments are going to need to get some permitting and get some. So maybe that 3-acre number is something that to be considered. One interesting one that falls into the 3-acre rule that I know that I've had somebody talk to, a state official mention to me, is Commerce Park is going to be taken a look at. And think about all the different challenges that they've had in terms of stormwater, that they're going to have to take a nice relook at their situation.
Or do they need to get renewals of their stormwater discharge permit periodically?
They do, the state does require new permitting.
Incidentally, what's going on with the Hannaford appeals?
I believe I and others are going to be testifying in
It's a
December.
public school.
So at a trial before the environmental court?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, move to adjourn.
Actually, a couple more things.
Oh, one more thing. Oh.
A couple of quick things. The November 5th meeting is going to include one sketch plan application for a 2-lot subdivision on Dynamite Hill Road. I will be putting some stuff on the Dropbox regarding the location of that. It's not, overall, excluding one particular factor, it's a pretty simple 2-lot subdivision. However, access has been a concern in the past, and what I would just simply request that if you have a chance to do between now and November 5th, to go over to Dynamite Hill Road and just take a drive up.
Steepest driveway you see in Hinesburg.
Will
Do
you
you
be
know
able-
where, do you know where Dynamite Hill Road happens to be located?
Will you be able to tell us whether that access met the requirements of the original subdivision and whether it meets the current driveway requirements for access to a town road?
It
in the
definitely
midst
does
of
not, because it isn't
investigating
a
that.
flat area at the
Well, I
back.
want that, all the facts laid out and, yeah,
I'm investigating that right
okay,
now.
okay.
And although I will mention also, I will not be here on November 5th. Alex is going to be
Okay.
filling in,
Yep, okay.
taking a nice
And they know we're gonna be driving up there?
I am going to let them know.
And all the people that live there. I honestly didn't realize there were so many houses that, I didn't realize that went so far back and that there were so many houses off of it.
There are 5 houses on that road, 4 which were part of the original subdivision, and 1 additional one that was a separate property that tied into it.
Did
And the one that's
Jane Carney do
subdivided
that?
is at the very end.
Did Jane Carney do that subdivision? Was she, do you
I think
do
it
you
was
remember,
actually
Ted?
Roger Daggett who was the applicant on this one. And the new lot that would be created would not be in the steep part of the access. It's actually towards the top where it flattens out, but it would be utilizing that same access. I just want to also mention that I received 2 other applications that have not been scheduled. I do have a BlackRock application on hand. So you're going to be hearing more about that soon. And
What's happening with the water
they have their allocations
for a limited
for a
proposal?
for a first phase of it. And I'm going to say it's a first phase A and B listed, one from existing water, one that the town is guaranteeing as far as with the new water that's coming.
Okay.
And I also have one from Red Wagon Plants for their farm cafe that is going to be coming in the future.
Okay. Interesting.
So is that one of those, it must be, everything served must be 50% produced on the farm?
It's not 50%, it's, you have to
49%, I
use,
forget.
I forget exactly how it's worded, but they grow herbs, and the herbs that they grow are, it's baked goods, it's baked off-premise, but they utilize the herbs grown on the farm or in the greenhouses, to bake the products that they then serve.
And this
And
would
that
just be
counts.
seasonal, I assume.
Yes, it will be
Because they
seasonal.
shut down early. I mean, they
Yeah,
shut down in
they-
September.
yeah.
I was surprised.
And, yeah, so and I won't be here on November 5th, but
Where are you gonna be?
Israel.
Good for you.
Good trip.
Come back with a tan.
Yeah.
And no shrapnel wounds.
Beaches.
Yeah, actually, I'm going with a pretty sizable group and going to see a bunch of places that I'm going to have a chance to go to both sides, both the Jewish side and the Arab side of the Temple Mount.
Well, safe travels, Mitch.
Well, thank you.
We wish you
Yep.
well.
Yep.
Thank you.
Move to adjourn.
Second. Gone.
Aye.